Marvellous. I'll try again. Can someone just confirm that they can hear us now?
Yes, we can
Perfect.
hear.
Thank you. So just going on to introductions quickly. So I'm Charles Pugsley. I'm the new lead member for Children and Family Services and Community Safety. Whoever else speaks sort of throughout the meeting, whether that's presenting a paper or asking any question, if you just quickly introduce yourself as we start. So moving on to the second item of the agenda, which is minutes of the previous meeting. These can be found on pages 3 to 10. Does anybody have any issues with these they'd like to raise? No, perfect. Moving into item 3, matters arising. I think it's sort of the perfect time to say the minutes of the previous meeting. Obviously, I wasn't part of the board at the time, so I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Ms. Taylor for the number of years that she put into chairing the meeting. I'm sure we can all join in thanking her for that. Although she's not in the meeting for us to thank her directly, I will arrange for a card to be sent to her on behalf of the board. Are there any other items or matters arising that anyone would like to mention at this point? No? Perfect. So moving on to item 4, which is the LRS CSB action log. That's on pages 11 to 12.
Yeah, just to go through the action log. The first item was this related to the opening of Foss Prison, HMP Foss Way, and we were hoping to get a bit of research about that, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen now. I think Anita's chapter's checked, and we're not going to get quite what we wanted. Anita, are you on the line? Do you want to say anything more about that?
Yeah, no, I had a dialogue with my colleague in Blaby Borough Council, and what the information we got back is the bit that I've written under Rebecca Holcroft in red, which is the project was initially scoped in 2022-23, but didn't go ahead and was formally closed in October 2024 with the prison. So the university and the MOJ being informed of that. So that's as much of an update we've got on that sort of position on that, really, Ewan and Chair.
Thank you. And then there was the second one was about an event. Do you want to give us an update on that as well, Anita?
Yeah, so in terms of the prevent duty that we have within local authority and the East Midlands Regional Prevent Lead from the Home Office have recently changed. So in terms of awareness and information event in relation to elected members, that was postponed due to the local elections. So I will be speaking with our member services colleagues to see when a suitable date can be arranged where we can do an information event on sort of awareness around prevent and our duty for elected members. But date has yet to be put in the diary and confirmed.
Thank you. And then Gurj is going to give us the update on the ASB later. The query from Councillor Wise, I think Anita's going to cover that in presentation of her report. And everything else is sort of in progress and being worked on. So I think we can just note the action log unless anybody's got any queries.
Perfect, thank you. So moving on to item 5, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone have an interest that they'd like to declare on any of the items of the agenda today? No, perfect. So moving on to item 6, which is an update from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. So I'll invite Sajan Devshi to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. Rather than go through the report, I'm just going to add some additional elements that were included by the time I'd written this. This was written, I think, about 2 months ago. Hopefully you've all read the report. There's a section in there that we weren't able to include at the time around the Safer Summers campaign. We've received Just a bit of it's probably best I give a bit of background. So we had a request from the Home Office to put together a delivery plan for some areas that they'd identified, specifically town centres, for us to carry out a delivery of work that targets specifically 3 crime types, which were street crime, ASB, and retail crime. And there's about 7 town areas effectively identified, and we put together a delivery plan. Partners were really accommodating with that, given the tight time frame that we had. So we really appreciate the amount of work that went into that across the force and also local authorities. And we submitted that. We've had a letter come back that confirms what the metrics that they're effectively going to measure us on. And I just wanted to share that because we didn't have that available at the time. I've shared it in one of the other CSP meetings, but it seems like this might be the best meeting to just get everyone aware of it and just put it on our radar now. So I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay. Hopefully what you should see is an Excel sheet that's come up. Is that right? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yeah, brilliant. Yep, thumbs up. So looking at this, there's going to be a period of 3 months that they want us to report over. And these are basically the 3 months. So we're basically talking July, August, September, and these are the return dates. It's basically the 14th of the following month every month. And the return is fairly straightforward. They said I know we had it seems like a draft version that was bouncing around, but it seems like they've reworked it and they've removed some elements. And they've just basically narrowed it down to this. So some of this will be the force. So when we're talking about things like arrest for retail crime, arrest for street crime, that's we're looking at the force basically to provide that. And I know they're aware of this and this requirement. The thing I think partners, particularly local authorities, need to be aware of is these elements here. So when we're talking about fines, so fines for ASP, fines for retail crime, and fines for street crime. So if these are being handed out for the beneficiary areas, and everyone knows if they were involved in this, then this is something that I just want to try and flag for people's awareness that it is going to need collating, because the deadline, as I say, is always the 14th of the following month. So the first time we'll be submitting this will effectively be the 14th of August, 14th September, 14th of October onward. So I just want to try and kind of get this on people's radar with plenty of time. So hopefully, if you are having to liaise with other departments or any data teams or whatever, you can hopefully you can hopefully make them aware, and then this becomes easy. I will send this form out as well. I think I've got a couple of meetings planned with Grace and I think Paul as well from the force, just to figure out how we'll collect it from yourselves. So I know previously we sent out effectively like a survey that everyone kind of filled in. We're just kind of reworking what the next iteration of that looks like now for this. So it might be that we just send this form. I'm not sure yet, but once we've kind of ironed that out, we'll let everyone know. And then we'll just kind of take it from there. I think those are the main things. That and the report. Is there anything that anyone would like to ask any questions about that I can answer? Councillor Phillimore.
Hi, Sarge. Just curious, so I sit on the OPCC panel anyway, so will there be any monitoring of displacement? Because if you come down hard on one area, the risk is that they displace and go somewhere where they're not being come down on hard. So is there any monitoring of that, Sarge?
Not in this stream of work that we're working through for the Home Office, no. But I think I suppose that's probably potentially going to be identified in, I suppose, potentially at this board or potentially even the relevant CSP board. So I know when we've done work like Safer Streets for, say, Oadby, for example, we've seen benefits there. But then we've had a couple of perhaps neighbouring area kind of mentioned that some of it's kind of been displaced there. Nothing specifically, no, but I suppose if we see that, it's incumbent on us to obviously try and address that either through CSPs or perhaps some joint working through this board. But nothing specifically for this.
Yeah, you know me well, Sarge. I think it's just worth flagging it that there is a mechanism that we do actively monitor what happens if it becomes displaced crimes. So I'll leave that one with you, Sarge. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions I can take? I think Giuseppe.
Hi, just on the subject of displacement, I think you kind of covered it in terms of it will be monitored through the CSPs. So obviously at CSP meetings, we collate data, which is a little bit challenging at the moment as we're getting to grips with the new ASB case management system. But that will give us the sort of picture around, whether the antisocial behaviour is being displaced to wider areas. I know that in Charnwood, our MPA commander is very switched on to that possibility and has made specific steps around allocation of officers to ensure that we don't forget about the wider areas as we carry out this work.
Yeah, I think to add, because I suppose the 3 crime types we're specifically looking at for this is going to be around street crime, ASB, and retail crime. So it's quite honed in. And because effectively the financial year has started, everyone's CSP budgets have been renewed. So if we're aware that, I suppose this stream of work is going to be going on over the summer period, I suppose it's for us to maybe kind of factor that in when we're planning how we're going to spend the CSP funding. And if we anticipate perhaps some of these individuals that might be involved in this or groups, and they're known to be going across areas into neighbouring areas, then perhaps some of the streams of work that you bid for your CSP funding kind of factors that in. I know some of you are aware of the business crime initiative James, my colleague, is doing for the body-worn cameras, and I know a number of areas. I know the application for that is closed, and from discussion with James, a number of areas have been identified to be benefiting from that, and hopefully that mitigates to some extent, in addition to your CSP budget as well. Sorry, there's a couple of hands up. I'm not sure who was first.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Thanks, Ajin. That was really interesting. I know that some areas who aren't part of the scheme have queried how they can get involved in some of the work and the comms, etc. Is that moving forward?
Yeah, so our head of comms, Stephen Powell, I can drop his email on the chat for everyone, and if you want to reach out to him. So he's tasked with the comms side, and effectively what he's been doing is he's been reaching out to all the areas that are involved to try and link in with their comms team, and then start kind of planning what this comms strategy is going to look like. So we have been working with a force, and we've got a joint one there, and I know he's been given access to the relevant departments across the councils. For anyone that isn't involved in this, I don't think he's going to object to that. So if we can get it LLR wide, we have no reason not to do that. So yeah, I'll drop his email if that helps, and then it's just simply a case of just reaching out to him and saying, hey, we want to be involved in this, and I'll let Stephen know as well internally.
Perfect. Thank you for presenting this report, Sajan. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to item 7. Perfect. So item 7 is the update on the eSIM system. So I will invite Gurjit to speak and update on this one.
Thank you, Chair. So members will be aware that the Leicestershire and Rutland Antisocial Behaviour Partnership agreed to the procurement of a new ASB case management system. And this was after a business case was produced, probably over 12 months ago now. And we had sign off from chief officers across the partnership. Partners requested that Leicestershire County Council lead the procurement of the new system. So myself and my team, in partnership predominantly with the police and Charnwood, who manage the outgoing system, have been working tirelessly on this. So in terms of an update, all the documents have now been signed and returned and filed. So we have a partnership agreement across LLR, a call-off contract, information sharing agreements, memorandum of understandings with each of the areas that use the system, as well as lots of user guides and protocols. Go live date was mid-May, so we've had eSIMs in place for over a month now. We've delivered training for Train the Trainer across the partnership. Sentinel records have now been migrated over to eSIMs. and this included actions and documents. And the data download and workflow in the system has been very complex. So data came across that should have been deleted, thousands and thousands of records. The data was not up to the standard that we maybe expected. So a lot of work has been undergone to cleanse the data, and that's really been quite an issue. We've been cascading messages down to users from senior officers. We've been meeting with eSINs every day for weeks. We've been meeting twice a day to overcome some of the issues that have been going on. We will be delivering recap training in terms of the training that's already been undertaken. So uploading e-learning onto the system. So as previously updated, it has been, and it is continuing to be, an exceptionally complex project with a lot of the work being done behind the scenes. We have really tried tirelessly to ensure that disruption has been minimal, but we are aware there has been disruption, which I do have to point out is normal for any new system being embedded. And this has been especially complex because it's not a system that's been embedded in one organisation, but 11 partnership organisations across a sub-region. So just to put that complexity into context. We are working on a lessons learnt report with the police, Leicestershire County Council, and with eSINs as well. So we will be bringing that to a future meeting once that has been devised. But just to reiterate that the project team has been working tirelessly, and the project team has really been the police, the antisocial behaviour team and chief officers in the police here at Leicestershire County Council, and also a thanks to Charnwood Borough Council, who, as I say, did manage the outgoing contract with Vantage and has been working closely with us. The other thing just to add is, as we move forward, at the moment we are still working on embedding the system and ensuring all the issues are being ironed out and dealt with. Going forward, the system will continue to be developed, and what we do have to bear in mind is that LLR, excuse me, do now have a custom case form, which gives huge opportunities to the partnership to grow. It will make case reporting going forward and case recording faster and easier. And nationally, we will have a bespoke product, which by their own admission, eSINs is saying is a huge opportunity and is going to be the best recording system nationally. So we are still really hopeful that the teething problems we are having at the minute, and there are some, will be worth it in the long term. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Perfect. Thank you for the update, Gurjit. I'll go to Les Phillimore for the first.
Thanks, Chair. Gurjit, I'm just curious, and it might just be the way that it's been worded. On the actual presentation, page 7, may experience teething issues, of course, it's a new system, data transfer, yes. And then it says, partners already using eSINs have indicated, I'm guessing it says, yeah, have indicated, I guess it says, that they will continue to, as they are leading to inaccurate data. I don't quite understand that statement. Could you enlighten me, please, Gurjit?
Apologies. So there have been a couple of issues whereby some partnership organisations, some of the districts and boroughs, already use eSINs in a particular way. And we've been having discussions about this project is across LLR, and it's different to when districts used it in only their own area. So we at the minute have got to look at the benefit across the partnership rather than the silo benefit for one organisation. And that's where my comment is about. We will develop the system going forward, but at the minute we have to look at the greater good across the partnership. If one area is using the system differently, it's going to skew the data across LLR because we won't be able to access the data in the same way. When we looked at the business case, when we first delivered the business case, and the Home Office funded us to bring eSINs in, one of the big factors was around data capture and intelligence. If now we have certain partners trying to use it in a different way and we're not able to capture that data, it's not going to be productive or beneficial to the wider partnership across LLR, and it's not quite in line with what the Home Office agreed to fund us.
Okay, thank you, Gurjit. Chair, if I may, there's a sort of follow on from that. So, I mean, this has been a long time coming, Gurjit, as you know, and I guess my from the IT systems perspective, how can individual users populate the data differently that's producing out inaccurate data? And I haven't looked at eSINs, I've never even seen a demo of it, so I'm just curious is how much flexibility then is there in this new system for individual data populators to input data in different ways to a different authority, because that would be quite worrying if it's so flexible that individual authorities can update the data as they see fit.
I agree with you there, Councillor Phillimore. I think I think the issue is that's come to light as we've worked through this project. A lot of partners are recording ASB in slightly different ways and have different practices. And it's trying, as I say, it's been hugely complex, 11 partnerships. And this is one of certainly my and the Chief Officer team's biggest concerns, really. And we're trying to work with partners to ensure consistency. And we are having a little bit of reluctance amongst some officers to do it in a consistent way. And the big ask is that certainly for now, while we embed the system, let's all do it the same way, and then we can look at developing it and changing how we do things going forward. But at this moment in time, for the next couple of months, while we embed it, it's really imperative that everybody does things in a consistent manner.
Of course. So is Sentinel running concurrently at the same time, or are we no longer Sentinel, we're just on eSINs now?
Sentinel is now gone. It is eSINs alone. But it's fine. We have backup data. We have all the information. And just picking up your point about whether the system has ways of recording data differently, it doesn't. But in terms of some of the couple of the districts who had it previously, they used it in a slightly different way. And I understand the frustration. You've used a system in a different way, and now we're asking you to use it consistently the same way as everybody else. But as I say, we're working with partners to overcome some of these complexities.
Okay, thanks, Gurjit, because I know the intention was always that the ability to monitor and develop data and use that data is far better than Sentinel. So fingers crossed. Leave it with you, Gurjit. Thank you.
I don't believe there are any other questions, so we'll move on to item 8, which is the Speak Out Space launch. So I'll invite Inspector William Prince to present this report.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everybody. Inspector Will Prince from Leicestershire Police. In terms of the Speak Out Space, obviously I've detailed out on the report some of the key points. However, I'll just go through some further sort of background in terms of how it's been developed. So key to the Speak Out Space was how it would be to the end user. So we, through Hitch Marketing Limited, have carried out several focus groups and insight sessions with the end users, and that's gone from the name and the branding of the Speak Out space, because originally it was going to be called the Hate Crime Hub, to text layouts, video, how videos are on it, and how the links looked. So that's been really, really key for the service of the end users. We've had some good feedback from users and also from other academics, national charities such as Sophie Lancaster Foundation, and once it's become apparent or gone live. What's been really quite refreshing is that people have, because we published the data of the quarterly hate crime figures from the previous quarter, that about the openness and transparency of the police and the partnership. What's been really key as well is that it hasn't been branded as a solely a police product. It's been branded as a partnership product through the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner, because one of the issues we had previously with other campaigns is that people want to be looking for support but don't want to necessarily be going through the police in terms of that. The overall aim was to increase hate crime and non-crime hate incidents awareness, and actually people recognising that they may be affected or they might know people who are affected by such incidents. It's very political at the moment in terms of non-crime hate incidents. There's pressures from both sides of the political persuasion around whether they should be recorded or not. So we're still awaiting further guidance or policy reviews at a government level in terms of that. So as a result of the advertising campaign which Hitch have been put on, which Hitch have done, we've had 644,212 impressions. So that's where the adverts have come out on various different platforms, and we've had over 2,500 clicks through to the campaign website. Obviously, this is for paid for advertising, so it's the average cost of about 37 pence per click, which is quite a good value for the experts tell me it's quite a good value for money in terms of other behaviour change campaigns. One of our largest click-through rates has actually come from the Daily Mail website. In terms of some of the advertising through social media, the Meta platforms such as Facebook and X has gone through relatively okay. We've had an issue with TikTok. That's automatically been firewalled by them because they were assuming that it was trying to incite hate crime. But Hitch have appealed to them on a couple of occasions, but they still kept it blocked. So they decided to divert the funds back through to more of the Google search. In terms of the hate crime reporting to the police, since the launch, we've had an increase of 10 so far. That's just from data which I've just generated now. The caveat around that data is that it hasn't been cleansed or quality assured yet, but we'll do that prior to the release of the data to Hitch for it to then get published onto the Speak Out space. In terms of going forward, the partnership needs to carry on the support through their comms teams around the advertising of it through their organic social media profiles, and providing victims or people who are affected or witnesses of these incidents the information around the Speak Out space, whether that's through the antisocial behaviour or whether through its police attendance or not housing. From the police perspective, now all victims of hate crime or subjects of NCHIs are signposted toward the Speak Out space, because what's particularly key around that is that there's localised support agencies which have been identified within LLR for various different strands of hate crime. So because that's one of the main drivers for actually increasing support or the awareness of support that is available to those victims or those people affected. I don't have anything further to add other than the report, so I'm happy to take some questions should there be some questions.
Thank you, Inspector, for presenting that report to us. Are there any questions? Perfect. If there are no... Oh, yes, Les Phillimore.
Thanks for that, Will. Did I hear you say that you were waiting for guidance on, I'm guessing, the definition of political hate versus other types of hate?
No, sorry, I may have not made that clear. In terms of the recording of personal information from non-crime hate incidents, because that non-crime hate incidents very quickly are incidents which don't meet the criminal threshold, could be motivated by hate. There's been several rulings recently in terms of the retention of or the collection of personal information, personal data around that. So from a government perspective, they were looking nationally as to what the guidance would be, or and sort of legislation around data retention. So at the moment, we're still doing it in line with the college policing guidance, but it's just as a national picture, we're just awaiting that. We were told that was going to happen earlier on in the year. However, that hasn't happened yet. So we're just awaiting sort of national guidance in terms of that, but nothing's changed in terms of legislation.
All right. Okay, thanks, Will.
And Gurjit.
Oh, thank you. Just to say what a brilliant piece of work this is, and the fact that, you know, so many people are looking at the space, safe space, speak out space is great. Just to say that I think it's going to be important for all partners to kind of continue to raise the profile of it. It's one of those things that I think we do lots of comms around something and then we stop. But I think this is going to be one of those where we need to continue to keep it up to date. And this is a partnership space. It's not one agency alone. So just to keep it current, keep it updated, and to continue to talk about it and communicate it. But yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Perfect. Les Phillimore, do you have another question?
Yeah. So it kind of prompted an idea, which I'll leave with the relevant officers, but you could very easily argue that the purpose of this program sits in with the CSR program. So I'm wondering, rather than the OPCC having to pay, could you approach the relative social media providers and ask them if they'd like to support it free of charge? It is a CSR program and it's a very specific societal-led program. So I would be asking them if they'll do it for free or at a discounted rate. I'll leave that with the appropriate officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to item 9. So I'll invite Gurjit to provide an update on the Home Office sub-threshold pilot.
Thank you, Chair. Just to advise members that it's happening, it's going ahead. I think there've been about 4 meetings to date. I will bring a report to the next meeting in terms of some of the outcomes and numbers, etc. Just to explain, to ensure everybody's up to date as to what it is. So the sub-threshold pilot is on the back of the Southport attack, which I'm sure people remember. The issue there was that the offender had been referred to Prevent on a couple of occasions, but didn't meet the threshold for Prevent. This is because he had no specific ideology, albeit a kind of an obsession with violence. So the sub-threshold pilot is to look at picking up cases where there's no specific extreme ideology, but some sort of fascination with extreme violence. So as I say, there've been approximately 4 meetings. There have been referrals into each one. So there's clearly a need for it. The Home Office are running the pilot for 6 months. So as I say, for the next meeting, we will be able to bring a report with specifics on what's been happening, how it's been happening, and some of the outcomes from the threshold, and what the forward plan is as to whether the Home Office expect it to continue or not. Happy to take any questions.
Perfect. Thank you for the update, Gurjit. Are there any questions? Perfect. So moving on, I'd like to invite Anita Chavda to give a presentation on benchmark assurance.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share the presentation. Is everyone able to see that?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So in March, we had a meeting, which is an annual meeting with the Home Office. It's referred to as the annual benchmark assurance exercise. So just to put it into context, is that PREVENT is one of the P's in the government's counter-terrorism strategy, and PREVENT is about stopping people becoming terrorists or supporting terrorism, and it's sort of below the sort of it's at the start of the contest strategy in terms of what we look at. So within the Counter-Terrorism Security Act, there are certain sections within that statute where local authorities have a general duty on specified authorities, and we are, as a local authority, we are one of the specified authorities. In terms of 26 section 1, a specified authority must, in the exercise of its function, have due regard to the need to prevent people from being drawn into terrorism. And we have section 29, power of issue guidance, which is the Secretary of State may issue guidance to specified authorities about the exercise of their duty under section 21A. And the last bit there on that sort of legislative side is that the specified authority must have regard to any such guidance in carrying out that duty. So for local authorities, what that means is that we have a number of benchmarks that we have to work towards. And in terms of support that we get from the Home Office, as I mentioned earlier, we have East Midlands Regional Support Coordinator from the PREVENT side. So they work with us quite closely across the East Midlands. And the Home Office have provided us, and we have been working over the last so many years against the PREVENT Toolkit benchmark, and recently it got refreshed. And in this toolkit benchmark, we have 8 areas that we have to cover. And I'll come to that in my final slide, Chair. But just to specify that these are the authorities that come under sort of local authorities, so in relation to those that need to meet the PREVENT duty. And in terms of a summary of sort of our assurance process, and in terms of some of the key things that they've pointed out in the paper that came back to our chief execs, which I will share the letter to all district and borough partners, that there is a very strong and solid governance structure and excellent delivery group processes that we have already established and been working to for a long time. There is dynamic risk assessment, and it's well linked into the governance structures, and positive action towards PREVENT training, including bespoke training plans for different council departments and variety of resources that are available. So all authorities will have their own due diligence in terms of what they pull together around delivery of training for their staff, for example. And in terms of key actions and recommendations to assist improving our PREVENT delivery going forward into the next year, is that school staff are encouraged to access quality PREVENT training monthly, and that this is a PREVENT training offered by the DFE Regional PREVENT Coordinator. That offer and request has already gone out via head teachers' briefings. And in terms of the council's existing IT firewall policy, this is regularly reviewed and updated dynamically to account for any emerging groups, issues of concerns. And we are pleased to say that that has recently been checked by our business managers in the team that look after this, and we are up to speed on that, I can say. And also in terms of capitalise on opportunities for engaging and positive communication on PREVENT where possible. So that we're working with closely in terms of with the city, and I believe that the Home Office will be through the city having a position that is a prevent officer that will be looking at this particular area, and they will also reach out to work with us and help with us in the district and boroughs and the county. So that's very welcomed. And finally, what they have suggested is maximise opportunities provided by funding of a full-time regional prevent officer role. Sorry, so that's the one I was referring to that's going to link into the comms and engagement side to address any gaps and maintain progress across all key areas across Leicestershire. So that's the sort of note of advice they've given. And then in terms of how we have met against each of those 8 benchmarks, this is a chart that just identifies here. In terms of our multi-agency partnership group, we have what you call a prevent steering group, which is effectively a board, which is LLR wide, and that is exceeding in terms of what they see as the delivery of outcome. Our local risk assessment, we again are exceeding on that. That's coupled in with the way we do action planning and how we risk assess in that action plan, together with the situational risk assessment that we do annually, and in terms of also district and boroughs, we collate all that together. And that in itself helps to provide a report to the assurance meeting that takes place annually. Generally, this happens in March. Prevent partnership plan. We have an LLR prevent action plan. We have an individual. Each local authority will have their own prevent delivery plan and action plan, and we have a county-wide one that brings together the district and borough actions as well as an overview. In terms of a referral pathway, in the county, we have a standalone prevent web page, which is front facing, and on there you've got all the relevant information that you'd need to have in relation to signposting somebody, and also the referral pathway in terms of the form that you can refer a case onto for the police, for example. In terms of channel, that no longer sits with us. That's a very separate process, and it has a separate assurance, and the channel chairs would be involved in that. And then benchmark 6, like I mentioned, is to do with training programs. So we do have an established training program for staff, and the district and boroughs will equally have the same for their staff. And obviously we, as local authorities, including district and boroughs, would also need to engage and raise awareness and have information events for our elected members. And that was the point that we raised earlier, that in the county we will look to do that. And I did notice the comment in the chat. Yes, there was a very successful CTLP police-led overview that was provided to district and borough elected members, and that is something that the police have also offered to county councillors as well. So we will look to put that together in the future. Reducing permissive environments, that is including issues around IT firewall, for example, and also venue hire policy. So we do have that established, and it's shared across in terms of what we have in the county with our district and borough partners. And I believe everybody is working towards that and ensuring that it's kept up to speed. And then comms, communication and engagement is obviously benchmark 8. So that's really an overview on sort of the results of our performance review through the benchmark by the Home Office. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Anita, for giving us this presentation. Are there any questions? No? Perfect. So moving on to item 10, which is the subject of reducing offending and reoffending of young people. So I'll invite Carly Turner to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Just in terms of some context, the report is looking at some of the challenges and developments across youth justice. Here at the County Council, we deliver our youth justice services for Rutland as well, where we commissioned, but also our youth justice services sat in a bigger service area that covers youth work as well. So we have a lot of opportunity to work in the prevention space and do a lot of deployment and focusing on areas such as young carers, on street-based youth work as well. So I've provided the report for the board. It was shared in advance. So what I intend to do is take that as read and pull just some of the key headlines out for yourselves. So firstly is to look at performance headlines. You'll see that we're performing well as a youth justice service, and the measure of that, one of them is first time entrance into the criminal justice system, which has been consistently low, and we're really proud of that. We know that when children are moved to be an entrant within the criminal justice system, that it worsens their outcomes, not just during their childhood but their later life as well. So we do everything that we can to divert away from there, and we were extremely proud that that we don't have many, just one child in custody at the moment, and that's a significantly low number when it's compared to our statistical neighbours and home group. Much of the push around our performance data really is moving from national data that's taken from the police national computer into local data that's taken from our own computer system, and that movement has been supported by the Youth Justice Board. And for many years we've presented at this board what is national data that we can't interrogate at a child level, and actually it's really not very helpful to it to be really clear that they are Leicestershire children, and then actually who are they and what can we do about it. So we're really pleased that that journey's moved into local scrutiny, and that then we've got the individual names of children that we can look at and work through and look at kind of how we develop our offer and service and make sure that children have the best that they can across the local authority. You'll see, and it probably won't be a surprise, most youth justice services are dealing with violence being the highest level offence that's committed, and actually we saw the peak age of children entering youth justice is now 16 and 17, where previously it was 13 to 14. One of the areas that we are worried about though is the issue of overrepresentation, and so that's when a group of children are represented in the cohort of youth justice more than they would be in the community population. And so within Leicestershire we do have more black and mixed heritage boys presenting in our youth justice population than we do in our actual population of Leicestershire, and we also have more girls within that as well. So they're key areas as part of our youth justice plan that we're looking at. Other cohorts of children that we get worried about, for example, are looked after children where we're corporate parents, and we always want to make sure that children aren't disadvantaged or discriminated against by some of those factors that actually they can do nothing about. So we work really hard with that. I guess that leads quite nicely on to paragraph 13 really, which is about the movement into a child first approach and seeing children as children. And essentially what we want all of the children, not just children in youth justice, but the population of children, is to feel that they matter. And we know that when children feel that they matter, we get better outcomes for those children. We get less offences committed, we get less serious offences committed, and we know that we get less victims as well. And what we don't want is hurting people. And so we work very hard around that concept. Well, it's an evidence-based concept around child first. And what we see and hear, and we have done for many years in youth justice, is about teenagers making their own decisions, about making informed decisions. And what we know is with maturation and science that actually brains aren't developed. And so it's about challenging some of that stigma that places our youth justice children and almost adultifies them really, as opposed to seeing them as children and seeing them as vulnerable. The area that we're most interested in at the moment is the victim perpetrator overlap. And we know that nationally around 50% of children that are engaged in youth justice have reported being a victim of either bullying or offences previous to that, and that actually there's an overlap in that victim perpetrator space, and that's something that we're working really hard on at the moment. And we've developed a child victim pathway so that hopefully we can break that and deal with some of the issues, and we're doing a lot of work in the partnership as well. Paragraph 15 I've moved on to talk about diversion from court, and I think that really is what we're trying to achieve as a sector. That's what we would want to achieve for all of our children, is that we have less children in court, we have less serious offences committed, and that actually we divert children away from that space. And we're working incredibly hard with the police and Leicester City Children and Young People Service to have a really robust and credible opportunity in that out of court space. And we're just in the process of well, we've been successful in a bid to evaluate that piece of work, although I'm not able to give more information. It's something that we can present at a future time. And you'll see there in paragraph 16 as well, I've spoken about some of the evidence-based programmes that we're running in partnership. So the Focus Deterrence programme, which is with the police, City Youth Justice and probation as well, looking at that key age of transitioning to adulthood and making sure that we've got the most appropriate support in place. And then also we've worked with the REACH programme, which has placed youth workers in selected secondary schools and looking at that relationship around high level mentoring and having access to different services in schools. And we're waiting for the evaluation of that to be written up by Sheffield Hallam University. So just in terms of the partnership, and I know Saj gave a very robust overview of the Keeping Town Centres Safe this summer. It's quite a snappy title, Home Office campaign. And I've been part of all of those conversations, and what I'm quite concerned about is we know that summer holidays are peak times for potential antisocial behaviour and other behaviours from young people. And so we are supplying a SPOC approach, so a single point of contact, who will be Julian Robertson, who I think everyone here will probably be aware of and has got great relationships. He's our antisocial behaviour reduction officer, and what we'll do is operate a triage process where we look at those individual children, we look at what we can offer and where we can deploy services and what we can do to make a difference. What we don't want, and is always a risk, in terms of balancing it with the community as well, is more children entering into youth justice. So we'll do everything that we can to make sure that we get the best support out there in collaboration, and that will be across the whole county, so not just those areas that have been selected for that campaign. And then finally is just really a nod to His Majesty's Inspectorate of Probation. They are our inspection body. So Children's Social Care have Ofsted, we have HMIP, and it's just being aware that the new framework has been launched. We are waiting at some point. The phone calls are made every Wednesday morning, and we're waiting for a phone call to be inspected. We don't know when that's going to be, but the impact that will have on partnerships is we'll need to pull our management board together, and also where we've got work around a specific child, the inspectors will want to see how we work in partnership and what that looks like. So that's some changes really. But the recommendation for the board is that the board notes the content of the report, and I'm more than happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for presenting this report, Carly. I'll go to Les Phillimore for the first question.
Thanks, Chair. Carly, thank you for that. Can I just dig a bit deeper on bullet 9 and 10, please? So offence type and overrepresentation.
Yeah.
So question 1 on offence type and the age group. Is that a demographic cohort that's working through the system?
No, that's where they become first-time entrants mainly. So the issue that we have, Les, is that children, when children come into the criminal justice system later, they will have fallen through gaps of many services, and it becomes more challenging when someone's a 16 and 17-year-old and has got unassessed special educational needs or health needs to get that in place. So it's just that they are. But I think it's also probably some level of testament to the partnership arrangements that are in place as well, that are holding children in communities for longer, and the partnership offer that we hear a lot about. So I think there's quite a number of things that are happening there where we've got a really good partnership offer, which is then delaying, and probably you never have the magic ball, do you, of knowing how many children would have entered into criminal justice but then have exited. And so yeah, that it's not that they're moving through, it's that they're just a lot of our first-time entrants have not been known to us previously.
So how do you know it's not a cohort working through?
Because we know who those children are.
Yeah, but in my simple world, Carly, I would love to get us to a place in time when, I'm not saying before COVID and since COVID, and I'm sure most of us are in that same sort of mindset, but that's a 3-year jump, which would be very would be very synonymous with post-COVID, post-COVID. So that was the question. I'll leave you to, if it is a question to dig into, I'll leave that one with you. I think the other one was over-representation, please, Carly. I mean, I get the data and the stats and everything else. But this is all about proportionality and population weighting and all the other wonderful things behind the scenes. So are we proportionate to the rest of the country? Are we disproportionate? I can see what it says here about our own population, but how does that compare to the rest of the UK? Because that's a much bigger measure as to how well we're doing locally or not doing well locally, is that population weighting question. So if you've got any insight into that one, Carly?
I've not got any data for any youth justice services that are a similar composition, because that's what we would need. You know, Leicester City, where there's no one kind of identifiable ethnicity, has different challenges, and so what we do need to be able to access, and we can't at the moment, is what our group of home youth justice services look like. So I can't give you that data, but that's something that I can bring up, because I think it does help us to understand whether, you know, in a similar size local authority, is that something that's happening or not. But I guess what it does talk to us about, though, are experiences of structural racism that are going on across the country, whether you live in Leicestershire or not, and some of those structural and accountability, actually, and us asking the questions to go, well, why in the partnership are our black and mixed heritage boys more likely to end up in criminal justice? And so there's a real unpicking at our management board level, but I can't give you whether we're an outlier or whether that's what the picture looks like, but that's something I'll achieve to kind of get for us.
No, that'd be great, Carly, because bullet 11 also begs the same question. Is it girls of a white heritage or girls of a black and ethnic minority heritage? And so I just think there's a bit more info that would be useful.
Yeah, it's really difficult to know how much to pop into one of these, isn't it? Because I can talk all day about the overrepresentation. Generally, the girls are white British girls, and the issue that we have is that girls then will present with violent offences as well, where it is so when we're talking about that victim perpetrator overlap, actually a lot of the girls, when we talk to them, have got to a point where they just can't deal with it anymore, and then it's a serious violence offence that then you can't divert, and we're in the court space, and they become first-time entrants. So it's all really it's all really interesting when you dig into the detail about what that looks like, and that's something during this the last financial year that we put a lot of time and effort in, is to understand, because we also, I felt Gurjit's pain earlier, because we also transitioned to a new case management system, which took us a lot of time and meant that we lost access to all of our data on Tableau. So we perhaps are not in the strongest place. We've got the data in the here and now, and what we need are the trends and insights over the years. But I absolutely take your point about COVID, because it will have had an impact. We didn't have any courts running unless there was a serious offence, and so that's something that we can take away and look into more. Councillor Phillimore.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Carly.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions. They're interesting.
I love data, and I really like to understand what the source cause of the data is. So thank you, Carly. Thank you.
That's okay. I'm happy to have a conversation outside of here if you want to talk about that further. Thank you. Councillor Blackshire. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I'll now go to Julie Croysdale for the next question.
Sorry, I think it was Councillor Blackshaw, but my hand's gone up and down a few times, and it is related, Carly, so let's stick with it. So apologies, okay. Councillor Blackshaw. It is about the offence type that I wanted to raise, because when I was looking at it, it's suggesting the peak age of children becoming involved in youth justice 16 to 17 now, and it was 13 to 14. Does that, I'm reading that the plans that are in place are aren't sustainable or aren't appropriate for the 16 to 17-year-old age group, and therefore there needs to be an adjustment about how we can tackle that. Is that a fair point or not?
I don't know that it's the plans in, I think it's the plans in place across the system. So those 16 and 17-year-olds, and I couldn't give you the exact data on them at the moment, but are less likely to have been involved in any education and training, so we're most likely to have been excluded. They're most likely to have been held on very small hours of education. They're most likely not to have had CAMS assessments and being engaged in CAMS, and the most likely, I guess, when I spoke about health, and I'm just whisked through a second, in paragraph 14, we're talking about a lot of speech, language, communication, and actually those children that are with us are less likely to be able to communicate and understand their needs as well. So it's a really complex. It's a bit like the conversation about intersectionality, isn't it? About how different needs overlap and which one you deal with first. And I think what we are seeing is those children. Last year we had, off the top of my head, about 73 first-time entrants. So we're not talking massive numbers, but all of those came through with very complicated life situations and very quite significant issues where they just haven't got what they should have had because of those complicated life situations as well. And so I'm not necessarily sure it's the plans. I think it's the systems that are in place, you know, about waiting lists, about if you're not in education, then your needs aren't being identified in the best way that we can. And we know that if you can be sustained in education, then your trajectory is much better after that. So I think it's a lot of unmet needs, Julie, that are playing themselves out, that when that children then have got to a point, you know, if I'm a 16 and 17-year-old and I haven't got anything to do in my day, then, you know, it does leave children vulnerable to being recruited into exploitation, to be involved in offending. I think that's what we're seeing in that space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. We'll now go to Liz Blackshaw for the next question.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Les and Julie for stealing some of the questions that I was going to, but I just want to directly join those dots together. In a previous report that came to this board, we saw that there was an overrepresentation of children with neurodiverse and specific educational learning needs. We're also seeing here that there is a jump in the age group, and these are specifically the children who have been affected most by the conditions that COVID put on them, but also the lack of access that they had to CAMS and to education other than at school. I'm really interested that diversity doesn't feature in your report. I think that the scale of overrepresentation that came to us before, and I wish I could tell you which month it was so you could look back for it, but I can't remember, that the scale of it is unlikely to have disappeared. And I am very concerned that these are the kids that are going to be most affected and most at risk of becoming young offenders. And I wonder if that might also apply to the girls. We know that a lot of the difference in, particularly in violence, between boys and girls is socialized. And the girls particularly have missed out on the socialization as a result of COVID. And if it's okay, because I can't remember names and stuff off the top of my head, is it all right if I email you a couple of links to those bits of research that I've been following?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's okay just to provide a response, neurodiversity is absolutely an issue. It isn't in my report because of the issues that I've had about moving to a new system and not having the data. So just yesterday, actually, I received, so where we're trying to get in the county council is to a sophisticated place of using Tableau data dashboards to pull and extract data from different systems, because it won't be a surprise that we do record across different systems. And so just yesterday I had the data around children in youth justice that have got an education healthcare plan, and it's 13, and that is an incredibly low number for what we are seeing statistically across youth justice. So what I know about the unmet needs, and we can assume that that's an underrepresentation of how many children actually should be in that place. But that's something that I am happy, I come annually, and I'm happy to do more of a focus on neurodiversity next year, because I think we will be in a better place. Well, we will be in a better place with our data and our working with the Senna team as well. But yeah, happy to receive any emails, and but I just did want to let you know that it wasn't a mission because it doesn't exist. It's an omission because I don't have the data to be able to give you that at the moment.
Thank you, Carly. I would say, you know, the reason why we've got an underrepresentation of those with what we previously called statements is specifically because they didn't get access to that kind of support during COVID. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Christine Wise for the next question.
Apologies if this has already been brought up, because I've been having to dip in and out as my shrub trimmer arrived. I raised it in the previous meeting. I have some concerns about children who are victims of domestic abuse, and where the overlap between services, because they can have very distorted ideas of relationships and what's actually violence. And I just wonder if we're, you know, what work there is to look at how we move children through a system to better protect them.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking about this when we were in the meeting previous, actually, but I was also thinking about it in the context of Gurjit talking about violence fixated individuals as well. And actually, I think we've traditionally looked for a youth justice response for children and domestic abuse and children and prevent, and actually those responses are firmly, in my view, sat in safeguarding, and so I'm really confident that we, you know, at within the county council, we've got the extended domestic abuse teams, we've got families, family help, and we've got lots of prevention services where all of those I guess issues that we raise, and we heard Safe Lives earlier, are being kind of identified and acknowledged. We've got some schools doing early help assessments as well, and so I feel we've got a response for children that then present in youth justice, but we've got other responses that are sat in that early help space as well, including within my youth work arena. So it doesn't feature here as much, but we will know that those children all predominantly will have been victims of domestic abuse within childhood. But actually I almost feel it's a bit of a failing if those children are landing in youth justice, when actually we need to be looking through it a safeguarding lens, and essentially that's what the child first approach is seeing children in a safeguarding need. I mean, no one really wants to wake up and commit a really serious offence. Things are going on, aren't they? And what we need to be is curious and dig deep in that safeguarding lens as to what's going on. But I did take an action from the last meeting to link up with Chloe from Safe Lives, because I think there's an opportunity, particularly around our girls, about what we can do in that victim perpetrator overlay. But also we have got a restorative approaches team within youth justice, so we work with the victim code of conduct, we contact victims. So when children are presenting at the out of court panel, or they're presenting in post court, we've got victim contact officers that ring victims up and ask them how they feel, what's going on. We've moved that work now to ask what's going on in victims' lives, whether they need some support, to do an assessment of that. And so we're not leaving victims just having a phone call going, and this is what's, because we know we want to be really part of the work around reduction in re-victimisation as well. So we're doing that with our colleagues at Victim First, in terms of making sure that we've got the best. And I mentioned HMIP, our inspectorate, that one of the areas of inspection focus around those victim services that we supply and offer as well. So it'll be interesting, and that's moved us very much on having a lens on victims and that diversion space for them as well. So feeling empowered, but also being diverted into support to access their needs. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Les Phillimore.
Thank you. I think partly Les, but Christine and Carly, you just prompted something from history for me. So some people know, some people do not know, but my wife happens, well, she's just retired, but she's been an early years SEND practitioner for around 20 odd years in an educational setting. So she worked through COVID because it was a very, it's a specialist setting. They're taking in the vulnerable, the key workers, and safeguarding children. And she reliably told me ages ago that through that COVID period and the cohort of children they were looking after, they were identifying safeguarding issues that would not normally come across the flags. It would just not be spotted or seen. And I and it goes back to, I think, bullet 9, Carly, is that age cohort, that just smacks of it's the it's the COVID effect, which is really disappointing, but there is one, we know that. And if Jackie was spotting, the safeguarding, otherwise unidentified safeguarding issues, just because of the environment and the COVID and the lockdown, and she was working through it, when does safeguarding stop? Is it when you're 10? Is it when you're 8? Was it when you're 3? So I just wonder if there's a slightly different nuance to the questions that you're asking, Carly, about what are all the underlying causes within that change of demographic age. So, but I'll leave that one with you. But it was just something Jackie very specifically picked up.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I guess the challenge back is what are education finding that kind of where the vulnerabilities around safeguarding in COVID, because what they're finding and what health are finding are really the exacerbators into youth justice, aren't they? So it's more of a partnership response, I think, and I haven't seen yet any. And it's something I'll raise with the Youth Justice Board about what their understanding of the impact of COVID is having on our cohort, because I think you're absolutely right, need to shine a lens on what that has meant for children in youth justice. But I also think we need to understand on what did that mean for the police, because it's a partnership response, what did that mean for education, what did that mean for health as well, because only at that point, when we've understood that, will we then have a fuller account of what's happening for children that then presented in youth justice. But I'll take that away as an action to shine a bit of a light.
Because I think you've got the right cohort in this virtual room to dig into that data, because there's safeguarding issues identified within an educational setting, therefore it is documented and it is reported. And you should be able to track that data and how those children are progressing through the system. But I just leave that. Well, if you want to know where it was, it's LEA SEND setting, so you can work it out. All right, early years. All right, thanks, Kelly.
That's okay. I've got a meeting with SEND Service on Monday, so it's something we can start a conversation about. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to item 11, which is the Safer Communities Performance 2024 to 2025 Quarter 4 report. So I'll invite Anita Chavda to present this.
Thank you, Chair. I would also take it that the report has been read, but I will share in a moment the dashboard again, because I wanted to explain the question that was raised at the last meeting by Councillor Christine Wise in terms of the direction of travel. So I have got a response on that. But just a quick overview of this paper. The dashboard includes a rolling 12 months trajectory of that indicator that we look at within this paper. The bar charts help to give a district breakdown, and where available, a regional average is also shown. The paper presents a broad county-wide trend, and accompanying narratives reflect this, and response should be read in this in mind. So just that reflection, and then the body of the paper kind of goes through, where we are in terms of certain performance indicators that are looked at in this particular report. But if I can just now, Chair, share the actual dashboard, so I can give an explanation on the question that was raised last time and illustrate it that way.
Yes, that's absolutely fine, Anita.
Thank you. Let me know when you can see this.
Yeah, we can see that, Anita.
Okay, thank you. So in the action log, what I'd sent to Ewan, that explanation, Councillor Wise, is not quite correct. So I have got the actual accurate explanation, which will be going into the sort of information that comes with these papers. So we questioned the direction of travel of the arrow. So in relation to the arrow, what it will show is whether the current value has gone up or down compared to the previous value against that performance indicator. So for example, ASB in total, you'll see that previous value this time last year was 8.89 and it is currently at 5.96. So when we hover over the arrow, oh dear, hover over the hour, there we go, and this is rate per 1,000 population. The current value is saying that it's improving compared to the previous year. So that direction is indicating that. What my colleague in the business PI did say is that the colour shows whether this is a good or bad, so improving or deteriorating. And the arrow positioning was always correct, I'm informed, but it's what has changed is the direction of the arrow in terms of the direction that shows if the figure has gone up or down, which is this illustration. ASB in terms of personal, you'll see there the value is stable, so that's how that's been reflected. And then here in terms of the trend by quarter, you can see how this reads like I explained last time. This is the position that we're in at the moment. Go back 4 spaces, that's where we were 12 months ago. Where are we? I'll find it now. You there? Okay. I wanted to move on to show you the one under prevent here, because there's a red arrow. And this is in relation to the last point, which is percentage of people that agree from different backgrounds that they get on. You can see that this is in relation to a survey and its qualitative information. Now, this downward arrow is showing that the current value is deteriorating when compared to the previous year. So in terms of the qualitative data, when you do a survey, it's slightly gone down. And in terms of, I believe it's this one. The other thing is sometimes there is no good or bad because of the indicator, and in terms of domestic abuse and the incidents that we record on that, this arrow here, the blue arrow, is open to interpretation. So previously we had 16.52 and this current value is 15.70. So the current value is lower than what was compared previously. And so that is open to interpretation. I'm happy to take any questions on the charts right now if that's something that you would like, or I can just continue with the report, because I would like to just draw your attention to the recommendation also in this paper in relation to the MARAC. So the MARAC indicator regarding repeat referrals is discontinued due to no longer being used by Safe Lives, is what I've been informed. So MARAC representatives to inform the board on a future indicator, and that's the recommendation that I put, Chair, in this paper as to, can that be taken forward, and hopefully we get a response back as to what the position is on that. I don't know, Gurjit, if you wanted to come in on that aspect of this paper.
We'll get some officers to look into that one for you, Anita.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Perfect. I'll go to Les Phillimore.
Hey, Anita. It's not a question, it's an observation, and it's a personal preference. I think sawtooth grass can be harder to interpret than moving average trend is always my favourite, because it tells you what's happening over time on average. but that BA dashboard should be able to do an overlay of MATs. It's just an observation.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Les.
Perfect. I don't believe there are any further questions.
Thank you.
Marvellous. Thank you, Anita. So we'll move on to item 12, which is other business. I've got a point of in-person board meetings. So I'd like to propose that each year one board meeting is to be conducted in person with a slightly later start date, and that the rest of the meetings remain as they currently are. So I'll open that up to the board for discussion. Perfect. I don't believe there are any objections. So moving on to item 13, which is the date of the next meeting. So the next meeting of the board is scheduled to take place on Thursday, the 25th of September, 2025 at 10 a.m. Perfect. So I'd like to draw this meeting to a close. Thank you everyone for attending.